Hi, I'm Bob Haber, and today on the HaberBrook farm, I'll be building a sturdy trellis for my raised bed garden. Now, everybody loves to grow tomatoes in their garden. There's nothing like a homegrown tomato. And I started out using these cages, and then the tomatoes got too big, so I used stakes, and no matter what I did, a big Cleveland rainstorm came along and blew some of the stuff over. So a couple of years ago, I built this trellis. And the trellis supports the tomato because it's a vine, and this worked great except for one problem. I first used a 2x4, but that bent as I tightened the wires. I supported that with a railroad tie, and that also bent, so I finally had to use these braces. And that finally did the job, but I wouldn't use this technique again. This year I'll be using I-beams for supports. I-beams are very strong construction elements. They resist bending in both directions. And these very small I-beams I found were actually less expensive than all the wood and hardware that I used in my previous design. I've pre-drilled some 3/8 inch holes in these to fit my 3/8 inch lag bolts, as well as 1/4 inch holes for my eye-bolts. Let's get this started. I've also pre-cut a notch in the original overhang of the raised bed garden to fit the I-beam. Next, I positioned the I-beam in place. And secure it. And that should give me a lot of strength when I secure my wires, and now we'll repeat this on the opposite side. Good. Next, I'll be using tall fence posts to support the trellis wires in between the end pieces. Thankfully, my wife is very trusting. So yesterday we installed our I-beams and our fence posts. Today we're going to install our wire, attach them to the fence posts, and finish the trellis. Last year I used turnbuckles to tighten the wires. They worked very nicely, but they did add complexity. This year I'm going simpler. I'm using eye-bolts. Eye-bolts have a long thread, and I'll be able to use that to tighten the line by about 2 inches. That should give me plenty of tightness. Last time I tried string first for my support, but that was definitely not strong enough. Then I switched to 16 gauge galvanized wire. That did the job, and that's what I'll be using this year. Then I run the wire to the opposite side. Pull it as tightly as I can get it, and again wrap the wire around itself. And then, just by tightening this bolt, I tighten the wire. All right, the eye-bolts did a great job giving tension to the wire. Now I'll install the rest of the wire separated by 8.5 inches. So the wires have been installed and partially tightened. The next step is to attach the wires to these fence posts, and we use something called a T-post clip. Real farmers use these to attach barbed wire to their posts surrounding their pastures. But this is going to work very nicely for our purposes. Now, I don't own a specialized T-post clip tool, so I just slide the clips around my post and use a pair of pliers to crimp them into place. And this creates a very secure hold. These wires aren't going anywhere. So that does it. Our trellis is ready to support whatever crop we want to plant this year. So let's review what we've done. This is a 50-foot raised bed garden. I used 8-foot steel I-beams as my end supports, secured with 3 3/8-inch lag bolts in each end. The beams were painted to prevent rust. I used 4 10-foot fence posts separated by about 11 feet and pounded 2 feet into the ground to give additional support. I used 1/4-inch I-bolts spaced 8.5 inches apart to attach 16-gauge galvanized wire to serve as the trellis and attach the wire to the fence posts with T-post clips. So this trellis should support any kind of crop we choose to plant. In addition to our tomatoes, we'll plant string beans, squash, all sorts of stuff, and we're looking forward to the spring and summer. In my next video, I'll show you a very simple and organic method to keep weeds from growing in your garden. Until then, happy gardening.